Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/ask Reddit by Planet Reddit. What was the most ducked up thing you saw in school? A kid jumped over the balcony to try and beat the rush on mashed potato day. He broke both his legs. Did not get his potatoes. Took me too long to realize mashed potato day is probably just the day your cafeteria serves mashed potatoes, and not some kind of big yearly mashed potato event at your school. Oh man. I wish it would have been a mashed potato event. That would have been so amazing. But alas, no. Just plain old mashed potato day. It was every Friday and always a madhouse trying to get down to the cafeteria due to the way the school was set up. There is no way on God's green earth that school cafeteria mashed potatoes were so good that students looked forward to them. What the hell was the secret ingredient? Heroin? A couple ducking in the dumpster behind the cafeteria. For the rest of the year, people would walk up behind the dude crinkling paper and asking if it was getting him hard. Just to add a bit, 4 or 5 of my friends and I stumbled upon this event while we were coming back on campus, and one of them went to throw his trash away. It got around the school pretty damn fast. It's probably a good thing that I'm old enough that the smartphone wasn't a thing when I was in high school, because there's a good shot that one of the group would have been dumb and taken a picture that included a 17-year-old having sex. Like physically in the dumpster or just behind it in some sort of enclosure? Inside the dumpster. Where the trash belongs. Our school bully nasty piece of work we'll call C ripped the wig off a new student, A, who had recently returned from cancer treatment. They got into it and A was suspended despite multiple witnesses. We suspect even the teachers were slightly scared of C. Next day as we were leaving, I was waiting outside for the doors to open. Comes straight in, grabs C's hair, slams her head into a locker, then proceeds to pull out a huge pair of scissors and violently chops off as much hair as she can before the teachers intervene. She was obviously expelled, but man, she's still my hero. Bully C was definitely put in her place after that and absolutely toned down her torment of everyone else. Wish I knew what became of A. Edit. As some PPL were asking about what happened to C and A, and I'd like to clarify, those are not their names. But I called some old friends tonight to see what we could dig up. We do not know superhero A's last name, so no info sadly, but I'd like to think she's doing amazing. On to the bully. So there is a reason I couldn't pull up any current info on her, and as I suspected, she did pass away in 2003. This is not cause for celebration, as from what I gleaned from old friends it was a suspected drug overdose. She wasn't a kind person by any means, but she was also dealt a pretty shitty hand, and I feel sad for her and those that loved her. Doesn't excuse her behavior at aged 14-17, but I have no interest in bashing her. She was a terror, but she was a product of her environment and didn't stand a chance to make a better life for herself. She died alone aged 26. Who was B? I was desperately waiting for B. Are you B? Edit. Row. It's morning and this blew up. I knew I love Reddit. Haha. No. Sorry. I'm not B. C was for Christina and A was for Allison. SP. Just too lazy to type out the names. I could try juice up the story and be Ben or something if that scratches your itch. Can I be D? A kid in my school year stabbed one of my friends in the back. Not verbally, I mean with an actual kitchen knife. We were 11. When I was 9, someone stabbed another kid in the back with a maths compass. Just randomly with no real motive or logic. Why do the most violent stories here involve elementary age kids? Cause kids at that age are psychopaths. In 1st grade a boy pulled his pants and underwear to below his knees and laid down on his back. Then a girl spat on him. I don't remember why, but I will never forget that sight. 2 fetishes were born on that day. Only 2? Nope. To this day she still thinks that's how blowjobs work. I had a friend that was allergic to so many things he had to eat the same thing every day that he brought from home. I literally mean every day for years. He had a very bad day, failed a test, some things happened at home. We met up at lunch and he had 2 slices of pepperoni pizza. He said today seems like a good day to die and proceeded to wolf down both slices. I had never seen him so happy. I walked him to the nurse's office as he ballooned up. He was hospitalized for 2 weeks. He never regretted the decision. That's kinda funny. just because he had no regrets, but damn, it's sad that schoolwork pushes people in that direction. More like he wanted to find a reason to eat something else and he found the reason so he could do it, as he would put, without any regrets. I guess that's what he meant. I saw the PE teacher getting a heart attack during class and dying. It was ducking scary. Half the teachers at my school are old, some 80 plus, so it is inevitable that will happen at my school one day. They train all the students how to use a defib and do CPR, which I personally think all schools should do anyway. Edit. Okay, maybe they are actually more like 70, just look older, but still. What are you going to do when your heart stops? I would die. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with the logic of it. Stanley, you crush your wife during sex and your heart sucks. Boom, roasted. Some kid kept shitting in the sink every week and they had to keep cleaning it up. One day I walked in the bathroom and someone had put shit on the wall. Had some girls in my high school who were creating works of art in the same fashion. They were deemed the fecal phantoms and were never caught. We had the notorious shit swastika smeared on the walls of a stall one day. Never found out who did it. I feel like I may have gone to your school, or fecal swastikas are more common than I'd thought, but I choose not to believe that. I worked at an American school in China a while back. One day, one of the school buses was on the way to campus from the city and there was an accident that students saw. A truck ran over a man riding his bicycle. The students on the bus witnessed the accident and watched as the man lay dying on the road. They were stuck in traffic and couldn't get away from the horrific scene for over 20 minutes. Kids were crying and traumatized. Most of them were elementary school students. There was a lot of grief counseling in the months after that. Whoa, were you able to do anything to calm the kids down? Or were you in shock yourself? Yes, many of us were in shock. 2. Details given by the bus driver just made the whole situation seem even worse. The bus driver was amazing BTW. He helped calm the students down on the rest of the long drive to school. He was fantastic. According to him, the truck driver drove off and no police came for a long time. Bus driver was Chinese and radioed to other buses about the accident and told them to take a different route, and they all monitored to the radio for information about the situation. Anyway, we had some wonderful counselors in the elementary school, and our principal and assistant principal stepped in to help as well. The students were more in shock to begin with rather than openly upset and crying by the time they reached school again. Thanks to the great bus driver who had a wonderful rapport with the students. Thankfully, there were not many students per bus. I think that bus was one of the larger buses, but it still only had 10-12 students, compared to American buses which hold 40-50 students at least. The school did a good job communicating with parents right away so they knew what happened and got some information about what the school was doing to help. In the end, while all students were monitored on an ongoing basis, only a few showed need for weekly sessions with one of the counselors over the course of the next few months. It was crazy, and I wonder about those kids and what they remember. It had to be scarring, and our scope of care was limited. We just tried to keep them in their regular routine as much as possible and watch for any signs of social withdrawal, etc. A kid clipped the tip of his tongue off with a pair of safety scissors after someone dared him to. One of my brother's friends cut the very tip of his nose off cause someone dared him to. Edit. His nose is just a little bit flat at the end as far as I know. I haven't seen him in years, but it was a stupid dare and a funny story to tell now. Maybe it was to spite his face. A girl was coming back from a doctor's appointment and wasn't there to hear that we couldn't get out equipment for recess. She opened the door, grabbed something and went to leave. The wind kicked up and slammed the door on her hand and she lost a finger. They rushed her to the hospital and they sewed it back on and eventually it was back to normal, but that was the most ducked up thing I had seen. I actually remember that happening to someone in the daycare my mom put me in. Needless to say, I didn't stay in that daycare for very long. This girl in my sophomore year sent nudes to an English teacher. When he rejected her advances, she reported him for possession of child pornography. He lost his job, his teaching license, and nearly faced jail time. He was a pretty chill dude too and was well liked by the student body. Goes without saying, the girl received a ton of death threats and ended up dropping out. How did she have his number to send them? For some strange reason, Giving out personal phone numbers to students wasn't frowned upon in my high school, and some teachers would specifically print out their cell phone number on their class syllabus. For what it's worth, nowadays you have apps that act like middlemen where kids get your username and not an actual number. All contact is logged and sent to the school. Any communication found to be outside of this leads to immediate firing. At least that was my personal experience. Edit. Didn't get fired, but did laugh at those comments. Many years ago I sat next to a kid in high school who went on to kill his mom. He would always bring in photos of homemade bombs from 2-liter bottles, flamethrowers from squirt guns, etc. I thought it was the coolest thing and was so impressed by it until later on when I recognized I was encouraging it to be murderer to keep being violent. It's not your fault. Seconded. No way you could have known. I remember a lot of kids being interested in fire and blowing shit up, with fireworks mostly, and most turn out fine. Ask a crowd of people if they used to play with either, and I'd bet just about everyone will have some stories. A girl had diarrhea and was wearing tights and sitting in class, and the tights started getting really lumpy, but she didn't get up to go to the bathroom. What the duck? Got a way to move slick and sly with the crowd, so when it runs down your leg you can kinda shake it off since there's less suspicion of who it came from. Who's gonna check or notice if I shit my pants while in a crowded hallway, right? As you briskly walk to the locker room before anyone else and then hide in that bathroom until the bell rang. And then wait until everyone leaves so you can safely change out of your mud diaper and dispose of the evidence. Can't say I've ever been in that situation, but I get it. r/suspiciously specific. Having a guy who killed his wife then come to the school and held my class hostage to try to force the school to give him his son so he could kill him. He was finally caught on his way to kill his parents. Edit. Another thing. Kind of. My chemistry teacher, years after I graduated, worked at the school with his wife. They had adjoining classrooms. He shot and killed the vice principal after school. He was in a meeting with him and the union rep because he was accused of inappropriate contact by a female student. Went out to his car to get his gun. Came back and killed the VP. I think I've heard of this story before. I have told it before. Happened in Chicago. Edit. Apparently this is a common thing. Wait, legit? Did he have a weapon? Watched two girls get into a fight. One girl had a bunch of ear piercings and was wearing so many hoops it looked like chainmail. The other girl got her on the ground, grabbed those hoops and pulled hard. I will never forget the scream. The rings didn't give, but her ear sure as hell did. Blood everywhere. The girl standing over her like a goddamn psychopath, holding a very recognizable ear in the air above her head. It was ducking Mortal Kombat in real life. Girl fights in school were always nuts. My very first day of high school, two girls got in a fight. They were punching each other, clawing at their faces and ripping each other's weave out, and the teacher came to stop them. Well, this teacher was rewarded with a shot to the kidney and he got dropped. What an intro to high school that was. They were always the best fights though. I saw one girl calmly throw her lunch away and walk up behind another girl who was walking out, and she just annihilated her in the back of the head with the lunch tray. The sound it made was loud and honestly kinda funny. Edit. I reached 69,000 karma with this comment. Nice. Her ear actually came off. A giant hawk swooped down on campus and sunk its talons into the back of a squirrel foraging for acorns about 20 or 25 yards from me. Scared the bejesus out of me. He stood on it like a boss for a few seconds and then flew off with it. This was at like 7:30 in the morning, so it took me a while to wrap my brain around it. The guy walking in front of me spun around and said, "Please tell me you saw that. The circle of life is quite beautiful." Join our community Discord, link in description. The boys in my class bred mold in one of the lockers. They managed to get milk so moldy, some yellow fluid was all around it. I did that but to a much milder degree a few years ago in 6th grade. Put a carton of grape juice and left it there for a couple months, and when I checked on it there was some black mold or whatever. They had bread in there for a whole year. You could smell the mold everywhere near the lockers. We had this girl in our school who was a year older than me. I didn't knew her very well, but we sometimes made small talk. Soon I noticed she wasn't in school anymore, so I assumed she moved or something like that. 5 months later she came back to school. completely covered in self-harm scars, and by that I don't mean just the arms or legs, chest, her neck, her hands, and even her back had multiple scars. She avoided everyone and became a loner. Once I was going to the bathroom during the lesson, and when I opened the door she was standing there cutting herself and crying. I was mortified but sat next to her and just held her. We sat there for 20 minutes before a teacher came and quickly called the ambulance. BC, she bled so much that we sat in a puddle of her blood. I will never forget how much she cried when medicals wanted to help her up, but she let out the most blood freezing scream I ever heard. They had to restrain her so they could take her to a hospital. I sat there for some more time and just stared at my bloody appearance. I got sent home and just showered and went to bed. She was admitted to a mental hospital where I visited her, and she is doing much better now there. I visit her regularly and we became great friends. Sounds like you did the great job of being there for her. Nice. I hope so, but it still traumatized me. Did you ever get any counseling? I can definitely see how that would be very traumatizing. Some girl broke up with a guy, so he smeared his shit on her locker and pissed all over it. What's with all the shit stories in this thread? I want to know too. How did so many people get comfortable handling poop? A female pupil punching and knocking out a male pay teacher. Edit. Apologies for lack of context. Wasn't expecting much interest in this. I was probably 13 or 14 at the time. A guy in my pay class, from a very rough family, had a run-in with the teacher in question one day. I think we went swimming and he'd forgotten his kit, so the teacher dug him out in front of the whole class. So we left the building where the swimming pool was, and the guy's sister is waiting outside. She was an absolute brick shithouse, a few years older than us. He'd text her and she'd come down to defend her brother. She approached Teach and started giving him verbal and started shoving him. He was very professional. He didn't lay a finger on her and tried to save face in front of his class of 30 teenage boys. She then started punching him in the face repeatedly and eventually dropped him. It was quite brutal, to be fair. The best bit was some of the boys from the class then tried to defend his honor, and this girl was just swatting them away like flies. Word got about a few weeks later that she was coming into school for round 2. She showed up and it was chaos. A mass brawl between 30-40 kids like something out of ducking Game of Thrones. It all led to a showdown between the girl and some lad from a few years above who kicked the shit out of her. Good times. Damn. Something like that happened at my school. But the teacher didn't get knocked out. He was pretty winded though, and she ripped out a chunk of his hair. A kid hung himself on a playground our senior year. I hear his brother found him. This all happened a week after 2 of the brother's friends, also seniors, died when they wrapped their classic Mustang around a tree near the HS. Made for a rough senior year, to say the least. Someone had taken a massive shit. It was larger than a coffee cup in width and considerably longer. So large it was impossible to flush. People were lined up into the halls to see this monstrosity, including faculty. You know it's a small town when a turd calls that much attention. Nobody had a poof knife. And it's gone. Poof. In college, a guy dressed as Gandalf came into the classroom and said, "Thou shalt not pass," then left. It was right before finals. After all these comments about shootings, fights ending in severed appendages and people shitting everywhere except the bathrooms, your comment is very refreshing. Also, I hope you passed the finals. Yes, I have been fortunate in my school experiences. If I remember correctly, I scraped by. It was definitely intimidating though, and I don't think the teacher was in on it. It was a rival football game and the stands were packed. A section of the old wood bleachers collapsed and 20 or so students went to the hospital with numerous broken bones, concussions, and lacerations of various degrees. During the same game, I saw a guy get hit so hard in the leg that it shattered and both bones were showing. Poor kid ended up in a wheelchair for the rest of the school year. I know it has nothing to do with your comment, but it reminded me about a classmate who had his leg broken and had to use a wheelchair. An earthquake happened and he was left all alone in the classroom while everyone else evacuated. That should be a thread on its own. In my school there was a kid, or multiple kids, we don't know, who would shit in a urinal every once in a while. They were known as the urinal shitter. Someone made a meme with the Grim Reaper going to the doors template with all the bathrooms they had done it in, and the Reaper going into the last bathroom, the office bathroom. The meme spread very quickly and I guess some teachers saw it. Since there is blood in the meme coming from under all the closed doors, they decided it was a credible threat of violence. They closed the school for 2 days for safety concerns. Just a super weird story all around. Sounds like a case for the Hardley boys. In high school, a guy punched a girl in the face, slammed her head into the wall, and threw her on the ground. He was big and mean enough that the adults just froze in their tracks. Wow, that is duck the duck up. Why do people do that? And how are they not instantly swarmed and beaten down by others? Blows my mind. Ever drive through the bad side of town, see some shit, and think, well, yeah, those people have those problems. It was like that. The perception of these kids was that their futures involved lengthy prison stays. The staff must have thought they didn't get paid enough for that hospital bill. Anyway, I like to think I'd be more than just a spectator now. There was a ginger vegan that would chew carrots up in his mouth and chase people around, spitting carrots at them. He ended up getting his head slammed into a bag hook in a fight afterwards. Did he die? It feels like someone who gets their head slammed into a bag hook isn't going to survive. No, he survived thankfully. It was 11-year-old, so they weren't strong yet. Edit. They were 11 years old, not the bag hooks. Someone's phone blew up in our school courtyard. Rest of the day smelled like battery juice. This post was sponsored by Samsung Note 7, a phone that gives you a bombastic feeling. We were in 4th grade and class just let out for a 5 minutes break. I was with a group of girls and we walked into the bathroom. On the far wall was a giant ring of shit painted in the shape of a heart. There was even visible undisguised food in the faces that, for some reason, is burned into my memory. There was a kind of a witch hunt. The principal called out students in the hallway, one by one, to question the kids. No one confessed as far as I remember, but there was a lot of suspicion surrounding a boy who liked to talk about butts and flatulence. I'm not even sure that he did it, but make too many a-hole jokes in class and something like this happens. You are suspect number 1. You mean suspect number 2? Janitor deserved a raise after that. I can just picture the janitor mumbling, I don't get paid enough for this shit. I saw something similar when I was in elementary school. 2 kids were kind of play fighting and one of them got pushed into this exposed metal pipe that came out of the wall. It ripped open his scalp and there was blood everywhere. Saw 3 little dudes try to jump this massive mountain off a guy in the cafeteria. He fended them off pretty good till the teachers, who were football coaches, managed to break it up. I was in 9th grade. One of our classmates got drunk, stripped and streaked the lunchroom, gymnasium, basically any place crowded. The staff was afraid to tackle a naked teenager, so we all got an eyeful. When I was 8, we were making cookies in class and they gave us square cheese graters to make chocolate chips with. Because they didn't trust us with knives, a fair judgment. Some kid was holding a few graters and pretended to be a robot. This girl shouted at him because he wasn't a robot and proceeded to take one of the graters and grate his hand. Lots of blood happened and then a pair of twins both fainted. The duck? What happened to the person who tried to grate the kid's hand? I and a bunch of other kids came upon the corpse of a kid who had committed suicide on the school premises the day before, which was a Sunday. He had shot himself in the head in the nice landscaped area that was designated as the official socializing area for the grade 12 students. He was in grade 12. It was established later that he had had some gripes with other kids in his grade and his teachers and was overall depressed and nihilist. That is why he chose for his body to be discovered by school students' personnel, to make his death have a lasting impact on those he considered his enemies. It was very early in the morning and still fairly dark. When I arrived, there was only 6 other people already there, 2 of them girls who were crying. Eventually there were some early bird teachers on the scene and they phoned the police and began chasing away other kids, blocking off the area. I got to see him though. It was not a very grisly scene as it was a neat shot through the temple, but there was a very large amount of dried blood that had run like a river down the pavement to a grassy patch where it stopped. Just some extra information. In my country, schools are not one big building like the American schools on TV. Our schools are more open air due to very mild winters. So instead of one big building, we have a bunch of smaller classroom blocks spread out across gardens and sporting grounds. So the body was easily missed by the groundskeepers who arrive early and unlock the gates. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.